The following video contains spoilers. We suggest watching the episodes alone in the dark.
Hello, Wolfpack. We're back, and wrong number sucks. Is what I would say if that was actually true. Ha! Fooled you all on that one. Instead, Wrong Number is well regarded as another huge fan favorite tale of suspense from the hit horror series R.L. Stine's The Haunting Hour, and I'm finally tackling another popular story that many of our viewers have requested me to look at, so we can see how well this episode holds up by today's standards. For those of you who don't know, Wrong Number is a highly successful tale of nightmare fuel that many put on their top 10 favorite Haunting Hour episodes lists, since it was one of the scariest stories to ever be on family-friendly television, and it got away with quite a lot. For starters, it played up the Debby Ryan fan service here and there for the 7-year-olds, but who am I to tell kids what they can and can't watch? In fact, this is one of the episodes that helped our favorite horror show find its solid ground and establish what the rest of the series would be like. Without this episode, The Haunting Hour would never have found its place in our lives as the show we'd appreciate today, supposedly. So this deserves a little credit for shaping the show in the way it is for us now. Personally, I felt like Game Over and Fear Never Knocks were both the episodes that helped form the structure The Haunting Hour would have, but most will say that Wrong Number is where the series finally got incredibly scary and interesting. What makes this story so good? Well, for one, it guest stars a well-known celebrity that tons of children idolized. The main character, Stephanie Howard, is played by Debby Ryan, a famous child actress and singer, best known for playing Bailey Pickett on The Sweet Life on Deck, and the kid hero Jessie, the totally radical babysitter. Both shows I have never watched. Sorry, but I wasn't a big fan of Disney's sitcoms, mainly because I watch good shows, like The Clone Wars and Thundercats. I don't have anything against the Sweet Life series, but let's just say that after watching Zack and Cody on The Nightmare Room, I can never look at those twins the same way ever again. Ugh. As for Jessie, the sound of the show didn't really excite me all that much. Not even a surprise cameo on Ultimate Spider-Man could make me watch it. Though I will warn you all now, don't expect her character here to be anywhere near as lovable as Jessie was. Wrong Number is also one of those rare Haunting Hour episodes that featured many actors who would reappear again later on in the series. So you just know that it's a good sign when every actor in this plot came back for more Haunting Hour roles in future episodes. Now you're probably thinking, oh what, this episode is huge because of some former Disney Channel star? Big deal. Well, there's more to it than just that. This episode was so hyped by Debby Ryan's role that she actually made a whole music video based around this show, which played a colossal part in gaining The Haunting Hour a lot of publicity, boosting this show to higher ground for family television. And I have to admit that it is totally nice of Debby Ryan to provide The Haunting Hour some well-deserved recognition. It's a little sad that she never guest starred on the series ever again after this episode, but at least our favorite show got popularity. Miss Ryan's song is called Made of Matches, and even the music itself got a cameo in the episode. It's an okay tune, but honestly a little short. A music video based on The Haunting Hour and a big guest star are nothing to brush aside, but it's the story itself that actually gained our love too. I will say points off for denying Big Yellow a cameo on the music video, even though he wasn't created for the show just yet. Besides, he'd love a shot at that. But Debby Ryan wasn't the only part in this tale to make Wrong Number a phenomenal story. The writers played their best cards in this too, as even fans who didn't care for Miss Ryan at all did enjoy the great storytelling as well. It's fantastic when a show doesn't just rely on a big-named guest star to hold up an episode together, since the writers knew that they had to pull their own weight and not make the same mistakes The Simpsons did. That would have ended horribly for them. What is this story about? Well, R.L. Stine is now going to make the next terrifying everyday object of our nightmares personal iPhones. What? Yep, The Haunting Hour is now going to make the next scary artifact of doom the phone. The phone is our next scary monster. I'm not even kidding around. Can R.L. Stine make the phone the next greatest villain ever? Well, I don't know, but the show did make us fear ice cream trucks, model train sets, killer dolls, a hole in the ground, so I think they have a good chance with this. To their credit, phones can be scary if they're used well in the plot. In fact, some of the greatest tales of horror have used the phone as an inspiration, and I think we all know what the greatest scary phone story is. It's called The Emoji Movie. Yeah, I know, it's a cheap shot by this point, but I do not apologize. In all seriousness, I think an actual scary movie that uses the phone is the Scream movie series. It's an alright horror saga, but the only bad thing I have to say about it is that the movie's phone technology is a little dated. You see, kids, back then people used these things called cell phones. They were really weird and didn't have as much cool apps like we do now, but Scream relied on using them to form an entertaining paranoia slasher movie. Now it's the Haunting Hour's turn to make us terrified of our phones, and we'll see if they succeeded at it. You're probably all interested in what I have to say about this now, so let's stop wasting time and begin. Was Wrong Number a gritty experience of true terror surrounding the evil phones? Or should this story be disconnected from the Haunting Hour's reputation? Let's find out. This is my review on the classic Haunting Hour episode, Wrong Number.
She wants to light a dang until it catches. Too close to be playing around. She's gonna burn herself to the ground.
So our episode opens up with our main characters walking down a hall.
Everyone wants to matter in high school, but the truth, no one really does. And I know what you're thinking. Okay, don't be so melodramatic. But wanna know what I'm thinking? Shut it.
Oh, wait a minute. I think I accidentally put on Mean Girls. This doesn't feel like an opening to the Haunting Hour. What do you mean this is an actual episode? Alright, fine, I'll keep watching. So yeah, we meet our main Mean Girls strutting down the hallway like they own the place. Through some inner monologue, we get to know who our main characters are. This is Stephanie Howard. No relation. She's a sadistic, self-entitled, smug, bratty, popular teen girl who thinks that she's the greatest person in the whole world, as she immediately makes the audience hate her guts by bragging about how pretty she is as she shoves other people out of her way to establish herself as the popular girl bully stereotype.
What a bitch.
We also meet her subordinate beta girl, Taylor, who's played by the same actress who played Lisa on Creature Feature. Taylor is pretty much Stephanie's personal suck-up who praises everything that her jerk bully friend does in this whole episode. Yep, for once the Haunting Hour is making our main characters villain protagonists, who we are meant to despise. I'll admit that Debby Ryan does do a pretty good job playing a mean girl, but there are times where she does go a little too over the top. Not to mention that some of their bullying attitude gets really held back since they have some pretty lame comebacks.
Hey, watch where you're going. Yeah, little Miss No Sunshine.
Ooh, Little Miss No Sunshine. What a sick burn. Next thing you know, they'll pull out the Yo Mama jokes. Truly, these are two girls you don't want to mess with. I understand that this show can't get away with having their characters swear or put out actual insults, but Wrong Number does have some of these awkward moments like this. Thankfully, it doesn't make hating on Stephanie any weaker. Ryan is pretty good at going from the lovably quirky Jessie to discount Regina George in a blink. So yeah, Stephanie is a sadist who takes joy in being a jerk towards everyone, as we see when she picks on this goth girl Adriana, who's played by the girl who played Bonnie on The Golem, and Allie from The Pumpkinhead. Boy, she sure is lucky that she ended up on some of the Haunting Hour's best episodes, and didn't end up like poor Joey King. So in case you didn't hate Stephanie in the first few seconds, don't worry, she only gets worse and worse from here on out. For starters, she picks on Adriana for being a goth and broke her iPhone like a jerk, but Adriana won't forget this moment. We cut to that night, where Stephanie and Taylor are playing loud music all night, disturbing the neighbors in the apartment complex. Oh, but it's not just any song, it's Made of Matches, which Stephanie says is her favorite song.
I love this song.
Of course she loves it. When her neighbor whacks the walls telling her to turn the music down, Stephanie acts like a jerk and turns it up even louder because she's mean. So her neighbor comes over ringing her doorbell, because all apartment rooms have doorbells, where we meet Stephanie's elderly Russian neighbor, Mrs. Biazevich. Biazevich? To save on time, I'll just call her Mrs. B. She's played by the same actress who played Griselda from The Most Evil Sorcerer.
I should have known. Griselda. Dear Lord, that's the loudest profanity I've ever heard.
Well, technically she played Griselda's old version and not the hot version, but at least she got another major role on the show. I guess we all now know what Griselda did with her life after waking up in our modern time. She went on life support after being in a coma for a few centuries and moved into a terrible apartment. Living the dream, Griselda. So Mrs. B calls out Stephanie for being a mean girl and tells her to stop acting cruel. But our villain protagonist acts like a jerk, surprise, and ignores her. And just in case you didn't hate her enough, Stephanie also drops in a swear word on a kid's show.
Thanks so much for stopping by, Miss Biazevich.
What? What did she say?
Bitch, 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 bitch.
Extremely big shit.
Bitch.
Wow, the Haunting Hour actually got away with saying the word to describe a female dog on a family show. This is so earning them a ton of points. So after introducing your children to casual swearing, we get a pretty funny scene where old lady Griselda goes nuts and attacks her in blind rage.
Take care. I will teach you, both of you. Stop it! Leave us alone! You better be nice, girls.
Somehow, Mrs. B freezes Stephanie's hand before getting forced out the door. Our mean girl looks outside to make sure that crazy old lady is gone and questions how she was able to partially freeze her hand. Oh my gosh, Mrs. B is some kind of superpowered witch who can harm others with magic. Is Stephanie going to take this attack on her life as a serious death threat and change for the better, or at least simmer down to dodge some serious trouble? No, of course not. Instead, she gets back at her insane murderous neighbor by prank calling her. Oh, but don't worry, she doesn't do anything outside of PG dissing that was done back on The Simpsons. Seriously, the insults this girl lays down are so lame and dated that even The Simpsons did it.
Hello.
Hi, is this Amanda Hagginson?
You have wrong number.
I need Amanda Hagginson.
I don't know Amanda Hagginkiss.
Not surprising. Who'd want to hug and kiss an old hag like you anyway?
Hey, just a sec, I'll check. Amanda Hagginkiss? Hey, I'm looking for Amanda Hagginkiss. Why can't I find Amanda Hagginkiss? Maybe your standards are too high. Hell, SOB.
But literally, after the third time she gets prank called, Mrs. B finally catches on and realizes that Stephanie is messing with her. No, really? She tells Stephanie that she should have been nicer to her because now Mrs. B is going to strike back, where she'll show no mercy. But like an idiot, our main character says, bring it on. So now the gloves are off, and Mrs. B is coming back with a vengeance. What happens next? Well, the next day, Mrs. B dies. Wait, really? That's it? She just dies? After declaring her vengeance on her enemy, she just dies? Well, thank goodness the episode doesn't just end like that, since we do get a little more later. I mean, the Haunting Hour wouldn't just give us an anti-climax like that. They'd save the real letdowns for Near Mint Condition and Coat Rack Cowboy. Stephanie notices some strange people entering her neighbor's apartment, so she calls her BFF Taylor over to check it out. The duo try listening in on the walls, but hear nothing, since the walls are too hard to listen through. Which kind of raises the question on how Mrs. B could hear their music if the walls are too hard to hear through, but that gets even more unexplained later. When they look outside, they discover that the people entering the house are morgue workers, here to retrieve Mrs. B's dead body, making the two idiots realize that she's dead. Yeah, both these girls are really slow on the uptake. But Stephanie doesn't care, and she gets Taylor to help her with her hair, since she wants to hit on one of the morgue workers. Yes, really. This girl is so monstrous that she wants to hit on a guy taking away her dead neighbor's corpse. Stephanie is the most horrible person in the world, and the writers really want to reinforce that idea. And just in case you don't hate her already, Stephanie goes right up to the morgue workers and hits on a guy right next to Mrs. B's body bag. As if you needed more reason enough to hate her, this is intended to seal her as an irredeemable monster. As much of a jerk move this is, does anyone else find it even more disgusting that the guy Stephanie is crushing on is possibly a 30-year-old man, and she made herself look hot for him? Geez, writers, you do remember that Debby Ryan is supposed to pretend she's still in high school, right? Apparently that's not as important as turning Stephanie into the biggest hate-sink character in the universe, since they needed stuff like this. Oh, isn't it just so romantic when you hit on a person right next to a decayed corpse? True love is in the air, and it's terrible love. However, one thing that kind of ruins these hate on Stephanie moments is Taylor's disgusted reactions. Now, this does play a big part later on in the story, but the writers want to show us that Taylor is not as evil as Stephanie, despite the fact that she's going along with all her crazy schemes and bullying. I know what they're trying to do, and it does play a good part in the climax, but all these attempts to make Taylor look good in comparison and show her having standards over our awful protagonists kind of make her come across as whiny. I mean it, quite a few of these moments where Taylor acts disturbed by her own best friend's atrocious behavior almost comes across as her being a whiny little wuss.
Those guys are from the morgue. Miss Biazevich is dead. Maybe he's too busy taking care of Miss Biazevich's dead body to come out and see how good your hair looks. Don't look, I don't want to see a dead body. Tell me when they're gone. I can't believe she's flirting with all over Miss B's body. I can't believe I'm looking. Why am I looking? Wait, don't leave me. Stephanie.
Oh, for crying out loud, she just walked 10 feet down the hallway. Do you really need Stephanie that much? She didn't abandon you, she just walked off. Good lord, do you need Stephanie to hold your hand for you while you go to the bathroom too? Are you that pathetic without Stephanie there to change your diapers, Taylor? This girl is so clingy and whiny that it honestly makes me question how somebody like her even became friends with a monster like Stephanie to begin with. In fact, I don't even think that Stephanie is a real popular girl. As far as we see, absolutely nobody likes her. Taylor is her only best friend, yet she herself acts like a pathetic wuss, and the only hints we get about Stephanie being a pretty girl who owns the school only come from her inner mind. It's like she's just faking this entire identity. Oh my gosh, I think I figured it out. Stephanie is not a real popular girl, but she's only cool inside her head. She thinks that she's this awesome hot girl who can treat others the way she wants, but in reality, she's just a sociopathic loser who nobody cares about. She's really just a psycho who thinks that everyone loves her and nobody has told her off yet. That makes so much sense. Everybody hates Stephanie, but she has deluded herself into thinking she's cool. What's funny is that we never see her father either. The episode does say that Stephanie only has a father raising her, but he's always working late at night, so he's never really there in her life or preventing her bad behavior. It makes me think that her dad is really allowing her to live alone in the apartment so he can get as far away from her as possible. like saying that even Stephanie's father can't stand her awful attitude for a few seconds. Stephanie is not a real popular girl. She's that pathetic poser who thinks she's so high and mighty, when really she's just a disturbed bully who acts tough by pushing others around and doing screwed up stuff like hitting on men above her legal age range while next to dead bodies. Stephanie is a creepy loser. The next day, they're back to bullying Adriana. Even Taylor, who got over that whole "why is my BFF flirting with a guy next to a corpse" thing. Way to override that potential character growth, writers. Also, what kind of high school class has silent reading time? I know it's nitpicking, but no high school class has quiet time, writers. Suddenly, Stephanie gets an evil text message. Not quite. Instead, it's a text warning her that she should have been nicer to others and telling her to stop being a mean girl in broken English. But like a total moron, Stephanie actually thinks that the text messages are from the Moore guy she hit on earlier and that he's trying to hit on her. Okay, seriously? Are you honestly that stupid? We clearly see that the text messages are death threats and warning her to stop being a mean girl. Not to mention that they're in broken English, exactly like in the way that Mrs. B would talk. It's so obviously the ghost of Mrs. B. This idiot just aggravates me, even when she tries to rationally think. But then Stephanie receives an ominous phone call where she hears some strange noises.
Hello, police department.
No, stupid Uncle Howie police. Instead, she hears strange whispers, but nobody answers. When she redials to trace the call, we learn that the phone call came from Mrs. B's home, where the main characters hear the neighbor's phone ringing out loud. Wait a minute, earlier in the story, the two girls couldn't hear anything going on in Mrs. B's apartment at all when they tried to listen in on the paramedics working in it. But now, all of a sudden, the two can hear the sound of a phone ringing inside of her bedroom through previously soundproof walls.
Great continuity.
The girls think that it's all just a crazy coincidence, but then Taylor gets a call, where we hear the screams from hell scaring them. They redial on Taylor's phone, only to hear that the call came from Mrs. B's phone once more. But Stephanie thinks that somebody must be pranking them, so of course they do the logical plan by deciding to break into Mrs. B's place, because that's all kinds of legal. Luckily, Stephanie's father had a key to the neighbor's house since he was actually friends with her, which really raises the question on how she never told him what a brat Stephanie is, but that's never focused on. Good thing they denied exploring any deeper connections between our main hero and a villain by instead acting like this is the first time they've had problems with one another. But who'd want to see more of Mrs. B's origin anyway? So we get a pretty scary scene where the two explore Mrs. B's creepy apartment, where they hear Mrs. B coughing in the darkness. But like total idiots, they never realize that it's obviously Mrs. B's ghost haunting the room. Clods. So after hearing Mrs. B coughing in the darkness, they still decide to look around the place, where they find signs that somebody or something has been inside, based on the lit candle still burning. Taylor thinks that they've been hearing the rickety old furniture moving around, but Stephanie is unconvinced. They redial the phone again, where they confirm that the phone calls were indeed coming from Mrs. B's phone, but they also see that the phone was working while the phone line was cut. Instead of running away as far as they can, Stephanie takes a look inside of a creepy dresser, where she finds her butterfly hair beret in a jar. Apparently it was stolen off of her during that time Mrs. B grabbed her hair at the beginning. Before she can question what's going on, they leave after hearing Mrs. B's coughing getting louder. The next day at school, Stephanie gets another ghostly text with an eye on it. But Taylor gets a text herself where we see that it's Stephanie's eye in her mirror. Pissed off, Stephanie tries to text back, but a jump scare spider attacks her. Hey look, it's that Yandere Brendan's missing gift he gave to Maggie on Terrible Love. So that's where it went to. So like a total idiot, Stephanie throws her phone away in the trash, along with Taylor's, thinking that they'll be safe without their phones. Remind me again, why is Taylor best friends with this idiot? This girl is a jerk even towards her own best friend, and is being haunted by ghosts, but Taylor still stands by her side? So in a desperate need of help, Stephanie decides to ask Adriana, the goth girl, for assistance, since she actually believes that the girl she's bullied on the most will help her in her time of need. Oh, but wait, it gets even stupider. Stephanie tries to act like a nice person, the key word being try, as she tells Adriana that she believes that she can help her with this supernatural problem because she believes that this goth girl is actually a real witch.
And I thought maybe you're a witch. You know, so you always dress in black. So do you know any protection spells or anything equally nerdy that might help us?
Yes, this character is really that stupid. A high school senior actually believes that a goth girl is a real witch. But Adriana tells her that she's not a witch because she says that witches are so passé, but she only agrees to help Stephanie out if the villain protagonist agrees to stop bullying her. Stephanie reluctantly agrees to it, so Adriana tells her that she has an uncle who's tangled with supernatural stuff like this before, and gives them his address so they can ask him for help. Apparently, this professional ghost hunting uncle Adriana has is, and I'm not kidding, a monster expert named Constantine.
My name is John Constantine. I'm the one who steps on the shadows, all trenchcoat and arrogance. I'll drive your demons away, kick them in the bollocks, and spit on them when they're down, leaving only a nod and a wink and a wisecrack.
Yes, really, this supernatural expert who has magical artifacts that can help ordinary human beings fight the unknown is a mysterious guy named Constantine. I'm curious to know if the Haunting Hour was actually referencing John Constantine, the demon hunter, as a reference for older viewers, or if it's really that hilarious of a coincidence. I sure hope that it's the latter, since the last character you want children to know about is John Constantine, an alcoholic womanizer who sees no value in our existence. Though it'd be a pretty sweet bonus if we did get that Constantine on the show. Before she leaves the library, Stephanie gets a phone call where it's Mrs. B threatening her again, making the main characters realize that they need to stop the ghost before her powers grow stronger. So the two arrive in a dark alley where they meet Constantine, who's played by... oh my gosh, it's Mr. Nabibi from The Night of the Mummy! Run, people, run, or else he'll tell you all to commit suicide! In all seriousness, yes, that is the same actor who played Mr. Nabibi back on Night of the Mummy. He was a creepy foreigner who had magical powers to combat the supernatural. Here he plays Adriana's Russian uncle Constantine, a creepy foreigner who has magical powers to combat the supernatural. Well, at least he's more entertaining than Keanu Reeves. The girls lie about being best friends with his niece Adriana to gain his trust, so he agrees to help them, where he informs them on the blatantly obvious that Stephanie is being haunted by the ghost of one of her enemies. Wow, you mean it's a haunting on the Haunting Hour? How unexpected. You really surprised me there, writers. But it's okay, because Constantine has his supernatural consumables in his back alley truck, where he gives them some magic feces that'll protect them from evil spirits. Again, was this meant to be a parody of John Constantine, the anti-hero? He warns them that they must spread this magic trash all around their home by tonight if they want to live. So that night, the girls spread the magic feces all around Stephanie's apartment, and they agree to stick together for safety. But while ironically talking about being safe now, it turns out that the magic leaves summon Mrs. B's ghost instead, and she assaults the two idiots.
I make you nice, girl.
Wow, I'm glad that they didn't pay Constantine for that useless stuff. They run into the bathroom to hide, because I guess it made more sense than running out of the building to escape, but Mrs. B sends in CGI spiders to kill them, where they grow slightly bigger. Yes, yes, consume the human children. Oh, knock it off, Manny, that gag is getting old. I don't think we've ever had another moment where the villain ate the main characters in a while now. You don't need to keep showing up every time this happens. I'll have you know that these insects are proudly standing up for themselves against these monstrous human beings in grand combat. You are a disgrace to your insect brethren. So after stopping the legion of spiders with towels, Stephanie jumps Mrs. B and they try to escape out the door while her enemy is down, but she's too late since they find that the door was magically sealed tight. Mrs. B comes for them and tells the two bullies to apologize and swear to stop being mean girls. Taylor gives in and apologizes because she doesn't want to die, but when she asks Stephanie to do the same, her idiot best friend still acts like a stupid moron and actually insults Mrs. B.
You know more about me with this?
I know more. Blah, blah, whatever. Yes, I'm sorry. Fine. I swear I'll be more times. Stop. Nice, like she said.
Be nice.
She's the one who can't stop being a disgusting, awful old hag.
Are you serious? Your freedom was right there. Stephanie literally could have gotten out of this completely scot-free. All she had to do was apologize, or even fake an apology, and she would have made it out alive. The door was right there open for her to leave. But nope, she just had to drop in one more mean jerk insult, even when death is staring her in the face. What in that stupid peanut shell she calls a brain ever convinced her that insulting a psychotic ghost would end well for her? Mrs. B naturally torments them some more, where we get a satisfying scene with Stephanie getting bullied by the ghost before Mrs. B traps Stephanie inside her own iPhone. She spares Taylor because she sees good in her, so she leaves, never coming back ever again. Or possibly so Mrs. B can pin the murder of Stephanie on her for the police, since they can't arrest a ghost. Whichever you like. We see that a pathetic Stephanie is now trapped in a video on her own iPhone, but instead of going to regular show's viral video prison, Mrs. B sends Stephanie's soul to another person, where we see that Adriana and her uncle Constantine were in on the murder plan all along. Yep, it's revealed that everyone Stephanie encountered in this episode was related to one another. Mrs. B, Adriana, and even Constantine were all a family, planning Stephanie's murder this whole time. Mrs. B was Adriana's grandmother and Constantine's regular mother, and they manipulated this idiot duo the entire time. Heck, Stephanie was such an awful person that I wouldn't be surprised if even her own father was in on the plan too, just to get rid of her. Also, who was really the brains behind this whole operation? Was it Mrs. B or Adriana? The episode doesn't make it quite clear who Stephanie pissed off first that triggered this whole murder scheme. But given that Adriana is the last character shown gloating, I guess we're supposed to think that she's the master planner. But anyways, Adriana delights at seeing Stephanie cry like the little baby that she is from inside her broken phone, as the episode concludes with the goth girl killing Stephanie by deleting her from existence.
Stephanie Howard will never mess with me. Again.
Guess she should have stuck to house calls. So yeah, that's really how the episode ends. This idiot gets killed by being deleted inside her own iPhone. That's the greatest happy ending the show has ever had. The end. And that was Wrong Number, everyone. How does it hold up? Well, it was actually pretty good. Wrong Number is a typical morality tale that teaches kids to not be bullies, or else bad things will happen to them if they piss off the wrong person. It's pretty close to the classic Goosebumps story making. Stephanie is your stereotypical mean girl who thinks that she can get away with being an awful person as she sadistically torments people who do nothing wrong to her at all, but of course, she suffers consequences from her actions when the supernatural Goth family stand up against her and eventually kill her. The main villain was not Mrs. B or the goth girl Adriana. The true antagonist is Stephanie. Our main character is the real monster in the episode, while the supernatural characters are the true heroes. Stephanie's a jerk bully who does nothing good in the entire story, and she only got worse and worse as the story went on. She cares about nothing but herself, which makes her suffering in this episode all the more enjoyable. This is why people love the episode Wrong Number. It's not just because Debby Ryan did a good job playing a mean girl, in contrast to all her nice girl roles. It's because when you get down to it, Wrong Number is simply a cathartic torture porn for a bully. We hate Stephanie a lot, and the episode loves reminding you that she's a piece of crap. The writers make sure that she suffers consequences from her actions. They remind us that we're not supposed to like her or see Stephanie as the innocent one. Stephanie deserved everything that happened to her all throughout this story. That part is obvious. Stephanie is always acting like a monstrous person and enjoys picking on others because deep down she's a sick, twisted freak, even until the very end. We don't feel sorry for her when she's tortured by Mrs. B. We're not supposed to pity her. The episode's main appeal is seeing a bad person receive their karma. It's the torment of an awful human being who brought misery upon themselves. The best kind of torture porn. Stephanie is a villain receiving punishment for her crimes from the victims she once picked on. People love this episode because we're watching a jerk bully getting abused by ghosts all the way through, and it's darkly satisfying to see. The story itself is nothing special. It's a standard scary tale about how a bad person gets haunted by their victims before eventually getting killed by the twist ending. Anyone who follows horror stories, especially R.L. Stine stories, has seen these kind of tales before where a bad person dies an ironic death because they did something evil. Wrong Number is kind of like Tales from the Crypt for kids. On that show, we follow a character who is intentionally created to gain as much of the audience's hate as possible before they die a satisfying death that they themselves brought on to them. It works out so well on Wrong Number, especially because it's a very unique anti-bullying lesson. This is a moral that comes through the eyes of a villainous character. Don't be a bully to look cool, because the people you pick on will strike back and possibly kill you. It's a very dark way to teach people, especially children under 7, but it does it pretty well. I did like that this is one of the few Haunting Hour stories where the main character is the villain, while the heroes are the side supernatural characters, since it's very unique, but we all know that Stephanie is the true loser. The twist ending is kind of predictable aside from death by phone, since you can all guess that Stephanie is going to die based on her stupidity alone, but it doesn't decrease the satisfaction of her grim fate at all. You get the idea. Stephanie is a monster who deserved to die. Don't be mean or else your victims will kill you. Debby Ryan did a good job being a bad girl over all her innocent Disney personas. You know what I'm saying. My only problem is that sometimes they go a little too over the top with this character. I mean, did they really have to have her be stupid enough to act like a jerk while asking her former bullying victim for help, or giving out one final insult to a savage killer ghost who was almost tricked into letting her go free? It's just a little too overboard. Wouldn't it have been much better if they went a different way to make us hate this girl even more? Like, wouldn't it have been just as satisfying if Stephanie acted like she was this manipulative mastermind herself, only to be proven how wrong she was in the end? Like, if instead of having her act like a jerk towards Adriana and ghost Mrs. B, have her act like she's an innocent person to make us hate her even more, where she's trying to act like she's not as bad as she really is, and that she'd pull out the tragedy card in a vain attempt to weasel out of all her problems like a real jerk would. But then followed up with her dying anyway, because both Mrs. B and Adriana see past her lies, and we get an even more satisfying scene where they were the ones playing her the entire time. That would have made this whole revenge scheme have an even greater cherry on top of this nightmare sundae. But nope, we had to have the over-the-top Debby Ryan doing her best Regina George impression. Not bad, but it's just a wasted opportunity. I did enjoy Adriana despite the goth girls no magic cliche, and it's very satisfying to see that she got her revenge. Mrs. B was just as over the top as Stephanie, but they do make her more ominous and unsettling over a usual terrifying monster, and seeing her scar these idiot bullies for life is good fun. Constantine was okay despite not doing much, and he could have been easily written out completely by having Adriana fulfill his role of giving Stephanie the magical leaves that actually summon ghosts to kill her. But at least this guy got a good role before playing the infamous Mr. Nabibi suicide assistant. It also shows the family having each other's backs, and all playing a part in getting back at Stephanie, so it's a good moral to teach kids that your family can help you with your bully problems. Adriana was the brains, Mrs. B was the muscle, and Uncle Constantine was the trickster, who gave them an artifact that helped backfire on them on purpose, and the whole plan came together brilliantly. Though I have a serious question. Did Mrs. B kill herself for this plan to work? I don't want to make anyone uncomfortable, but I have to know, did Mrs. B kill herself so she can become a ghost that haunted this monstrous bully in the same way as Aqua Teen Hunger Force did this plot? I mean, she does promise Stephanie that she'll get even with her, and then she just dies abruptly the very next day. And both Adriana and Constantine knew that she was a ghost, as they both give the girls false information to have her ghost come after them. So it gives me the feeling that the haunting hour is telling me that Mrs. B killed herself just to haunt these brats on purpose. Dang it, Mr. Nabibi, you really can't enter an episode without convincing another character to kill themselves, can you? So in short, the characters were entertaining, and it did a good job as anti-bullying propaganda. I don't know how they did it, but they did. The haunting hour actually made the phone scary. Good job, writers. Is there anything these masters of horror can't make creepy?
Okay, for my 307th book, this couple is attacked by a lamp monster. You're not even trying anymore, are you? When can I have it?
I give this episode a gold skull. It really is an unsettling tale of suspense and an enjoyable bully torture porn. The only problem with this is how you feel on Stephanie. Some people find her as a love-to-hate character whose over-the-top mean girl actions are entertaining, while others find her a little too annoying for being such a cliched stereotype as well. Whether you love or hate Stephanie, this episode is really saved by rewarding all her evil behavior with a grisly death, so I can see past it since it's built up for a good dark payoff. Bottom line, don't be a bully, kids, or else you will suffer. Great horror, satisfying torture, simple storytelling, fun actors, and a ton of nightmare fuel for the kids. Wrong Number is definitely a story I highly recommend if you just want to watch a straightforward scary episode. It's a totally disturbing ghost story that'll keep you on the line for all its entertainment value. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe, or just tune in for more videos posted here on Wolf Entertainment. I'm your host, Catastrophe, and I hope that you all stay nice people, or else you may get some unexpected visitors. Good night.
That girl's made on matches and she wants a lot of David till it catches. So we playing around. She's gonna burn herself down.
Bitch.